Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another book rant. Today I'm going to be covering this book, Godkiller, written by Hannah Kaner. It's a pretty fun one. The cover design is by Holly MacDonald, cover illustration by Tom Roberts, and the author photograph on the back page, which I haven't shown you, is copyright Magdalena Kaminska Photography. It is copyright 2023. This is the first US edition, so I bought this at Coas Books, like so many other books in my library. This was one of those books that my girlfriend saw and I saw, and she kind of knew I was going to buy it just because the cover, and normally I am drawn to any cover art that features a deer prominently. I've been using this handle online for a decade now, and I really do like any art or story that prominently features cervids. So heading into this book, I was intrigued and hopeful, optimistic there would be that kind of character, and sure enough, the story is one of those that, by some of the tropes it hits, I wouldn't normally like. It's a prominent female character who is good at everything she does. It's that good at everything she does and master at one thing in particular that really kind of annoys me. It's always the same mastery, and it's always mastery with a blade. In this case, like the previous two videos, it is a main character that is an assassin. In this case, it's not a assassin of people, but an assassin of gods. And it is her job in the kingdom to kill gods, and gods in this setting aren't described in this way, but as you read it, it makes it clear that gods are almost like vampiric entities. They are born of the will and prayer of multiple people, and as more prayers are given to them, they take form and become gods of very, at times, innocuous things, like there could be a god of a small spring on the side of a mountain. And I believe that's actually one of those that the Godkiller kills early on in the story. And people pray to it, and as it takes form and as it takes a will of its own, it starts asking for payment in return for favors. And that give and take becomes more toxic as time goes on. You want a favor? Well, now I need human blood. You gave me human blood last time, but, I've already had human blood. What new can you give me? A human finger? Can you give me more and more and more? Just give me more. And it's a very almost parasocial relationship where they just need more and more and more, and that's not healthy. So Godkiller is about a character who goes around killing gods because gods are genuinely bad for humanity. And so Kissen, spelled Kissen, is a character that has a god's gift, unwilling. She has a god's promise, basically. She is from a foreign land, and in that land, one god's people was conquering the land and set her family to death in a blaze, which the god was the god of, I forget, of fire or forging or something like that. And so burning these non-believers was an offering to that god. But they did it near the edge of their seaside cliff home, and Kissen's father was able to break free of his bonds enough to sacrifice himself in exchange for the ocean god's protection of his daughter. And so Kissen is tossed into the sea. The ocean god protects her because now it's not just a mob of people burning the non-believers of their fire god. It is a martyr of the ocean god giving up his life to save his daughter. That father could have jumped in himself and gotten away, but now he is a martyr. Gods love martyrs because that is a more precious, more valuable sacrifice. And so she has a god's promise, and as we see her in the story, she also has a god's curse. And they get around to explaining that curse and how she got it. And it's a very interesting story because the main thing is the setting is actually interesting, and it's not her necessarily hiding who she is from her employers. Kissen isn't a God believer. She actively does hate them and does want to kill them. So she is an assassin doing her job. She is not, like in Among Thieves, a secret magician hiding her skills and hiding from the kingdom. And not like a broken blade where she's already working for the king but trying to subvert it. This is a character that is very willingly participating in her assassinations because gods are evil, and she has seen how they can be used to hurt people en masse. And so it's the fact that it doesn't try to subvert those themes in very overt ways that makes me like it more. So Kissen eventually does become the protector of a young girl named Inara. And as Kissen finds out, Inara has almost like a pet, like a purse god in a way. You know, like there's purse dogs where a dog is small enough to fit in the girl's purse and all that. A lap dog, sometimes called. Skedaseth is a small shape-shifting deity of tiny lies. And this small deity of tiny lies is a very intimately connected character to Inara, and the both of them kind of need each other. They have this very close bond and relationship. Kissen doesn't like that relationship. So Kissen is set up as this Godkiller who now has to put up with a god to get Inara to a specific location in the hopes that they can separate Inara from Skedaseth. That way, in theory, Kissen can kill that god. Inara doesn't want Skedaseth to be killed, and they join a pilgrimage that is effectively made so that it can be killed. The organizer of it basically sets it up so that it is going to be sacrificed to another god. And instead, Kissen and another pilgrim, whose name is Elo, end up protecting that group for a long time. And then eventually they get split up, but now the thing that is attracting these god servants to the pilgrims is not with the main group, it's with Elo, Kissen, and Inara. And those are the two competent warriors. Those are the two that are going to defend this young girl, and those pilgrims don't have something actively hounding them. And so the pilgrims show up later in the story. They do eventually make it close to their destination, while Elo and Kissen have their job of effectively an escort mission to protect Inara as she gets there. And Inara begins trusting Kissen less and less, and Skedaseth is basically pushing those feelings to the max until eventually Inara is making enough soft little white lies that Skedaseth is able to take control of her body. And now, in that moment after they separate, Inara realizes Skedaseth really can be just as parasitic as gods are alleged to be according to Kissen. And so, on some level, Skedaseth oversteps its bounds, proving Kissen right, and now Inara is kind of favoring Kissen. Whereas Elo is someone who genuinely does believe in the gods still, but what we see, and this is part of the B plot, is the king of this kingdom that is very anti-gods led this campaign against the old gods, and all of the old gods in this kingdom were basically killed except for a scant few that remain in the city of the gods, the city that venerated the gods so hard, and now a few survive in that city. And what Elo is sent to do as the childhood friend of the king, he is asked to go to that city, and there's a big climax that I kind of felt, and I'm not going to spoil it here, I kind of felt upon getting to the conclusion that it was very well foreshadowed, but not so obvious that you could tell that it was coming from around the corner. And one thing I did appreciate is that Kissen does have some people she cares about. She's not just an assassin dedicated to killing gods. She does have people she cares about. That ties back in later into the story when they discuss the god's curse that she bears. And so it weaves together really interesting narrative. It weaves together a really good setting and a really good take on gods. In my opinion, this very parasitic nature of them is fascinating, and I don't see enough settings use that kind of deity. So Godkiller does, in a interesting way, what I wish Among Thieves and A Broken Blade had done, which is using that archetype of character, but using it in a way that isn't boring or is too powerful or is being manipulated on all sides. It's, in this case, Kissen is a pawn in multiple entities' games, but she is both aware of it in some parts and not aware of it in others, and utilizes the blessings that she has, the favors that she has, to her advantage. And so she is a very active player in this, whereas like in A Broken Blade, the main character didn't know that she was being played with in certain ways to force certain outcomes. And that just isn't enjoyable, where they think they have an active hand and they're really not. They're just being controlled. Kissen isn't just being controlled. She is in control of her story. She is in control of her narrative, and she has a few friends that are willing to help her. She makes a few friends during the story, and it ends on a cliffhanger that it leaves you on a note of wanting to know more. It becomes very obvious it's leading to a book 2 in the climax, and I'm usually not a fan of that, but in this case it was very well done. So Hannah Kaner did a good job with this character, and I'm looking forward to the next book in the series. I'm fairly certain it's already out. If it isn't already out, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I don't remember what I paid for this. The back cover says $19, and probably something in the ballpark of $19 or $20 is what I paid for this. And it was $20 well spent. I ended up loaning it to my girlfriend so that way she could read it. She had mixed feelings about it. I don't think she likes this one. She may have preferred a book like A Broken Blade or Among Thieves instead. But this was one I liked, and the fact that I was able to share it with someone else means that it was worth buying in just on that basis alone. So I liked it. I'm looking forward to the next one in the series. And yeah, money well spent. If you like any of the contents I've discussed in this rant so far, then you're probably going to want to pick this book up too. So yeah. My name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to this book rant.